there again, everybody. This video is going to cover the presidency and aspects of the executive branch and a little bit about bureaucracy. So chapter 13 and 15. So we talked about how the president is usually seen as the leader of the executive branch, and the president has certain powers. We talked about a lot of them. One of the powers that gives the president control over all military decisions is the president's role as a commander-in-chief. There are a lot of other ones that we talked about, but along those lines, as a commander-in-chief, people felt that the president was getting too powerful, that the president was able to declare war or didn't ask Congress to declare war. And Congress passed the War Powers Resolution that limits the president's power during war. We also talked about how the number of terms that a president can serve have been limited. They weren't always limited, but as of the creation of the 22nd Amendment, presidents are only able to serve 2 terms. Okay. We also talked about the different groups that work for the president specifically. Whether they have their own agencies or their own jobs, they're still responsible to help the president or aid the president, give the president advice. So we talked about the top advisors, and that is the cabinet. And these are members that the president has chosen, that the Senate has appointed to be loyal advisors. And they have their own agendas, like we talked about, but they're going to be interacting with the president and giving the president advice in their various department areas. There's also the White House staff. The top members will interact with the president on a daily basis, such as the chief of staff, the press secretary, national security advisor. But this White House staff is made up of hundreds of other members who do jobs for the president. We've also talked about legislative powers that the president has, and 2 terms that are very important for you to remember are veto and pocket veto. Now, the only difference between these, remember, is that a pocket veto happens when the president doesn't do anything to sign or to veto, but just waits the 10 days until Congress is no longer in session. And if the president doesn't do anything by those 10 days, then that bill is not able to become a law. So remember the difference between a regular veto and a pocket veto. Okay, so we do have to talk about the bureaucracy now, which is kind of how the executive branch actually gets things done. And the members of the bureaucracy we call bureaucrats, and there are over 2 million of these members that are employed by the government at various levels, whether it's federal, state, or local. There are also 4 different types of bureaucracies or categories within a bureaucracy. And we have the cabinet departments. As I just mentioned, these are members that the president interacts with on a regular basis, but their departments are made up of so many more people, and they have their own jobs and responsibilities. We also have independent regulatory commissions, and these are such as the Environmental Protection Agency. We have government corporations, and these work like private businesses to provide services for people that you might have to pay for, right? Like the United States Postal Service. And then finally, we have independent executive agencies, and these are just any of the extra categories that don't fit into the first 3, and NASA is an example of these. A couple more terms that have to do with the bureaucracy are what they actually do in terms of implementation. Implementation is how bureaucracy actually gets things done, helps create the policies, the guidelines, the rules, and then make sure that those are actually happening. Now, when different agencies within the bureaucracy need to make something happen or need to work together but don't, that is known as fragmentation, and that can keep implementation from working successfully. I think that's all we have time for. Again, thank you for watching these videos. I hope you learned something, and I will see you next week.